back to Tremor Trails. In the last episode, we started Section 3 of the EMHT Rocky Ridge to Finner. We took you all across the desert through the Devil's Playground and the Highline Pole to spend the night out on a dry lake bed. From there, we got you over to the Mojave Megaphone to check that out. Then we took the TNT down to Broadwell Dry Lake Bed. And from there, we made it into the small town of Ludlow to get some fuel on historic Route 66. We then immediately jumped back out into the desert to go find Section 3 mailbox. We found the Section 3 mailbox, signed our names, spent the night out there, and then woke up in the morning and started heading towards the small town of Amboy. From Amboy, we showed you Roy's Motel, and then we jumped onto that crazy wash of 6-7 miles that just kicked our butt all day. From there, we tried to go to Orange Blossom Mine, and we weren't able to, so we dumped down into the mountains and made it out towards Granite Pass. From Granite Pass, we made it to the south end of the Kelso Sand Dunes, where we are today. Hi guys, and welcome back to Tremor Trails. Hope everybody's doing well. If you followed our last video, we have been out in the EMHT, which is a 660-mile long wheeling overlanding route all through the Mojave Desert. And we got here to the Kelso Sand Dunes and decided to wrap up that video. Today, we still got a long ways to go. But we are going to try and get over to the ghost town of Providence and the Bonanza Creek mine before finishing up the final segment of the third section. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't worn out. I am worn out. This is going on day 4 for this section, and while we have completed section 1 and 2, yesterday just took it out of me. Hopefully today is not going to be as severe, but it's the EMHT, so I'm sure it will be somewhere. Nonetheless, we were excited to get this segment done. Sitting here at the Kelso Sand Dunes last night was beautiful. I highly recommend getting out here, even if you don't do the EMHT in full. Sunlight is up and burning, which means we only got a short amount of time due to the sun setting at 4:30 every day out here in the desert, so we have got to make up time. Let's jump up on the trail and get going. One thing about the EMHT is it goes to all of the parts of the Mojave and the Mojave Preserve. And what you kind of see is that after you do a couple of sections, you kind of get back to familiar spots. What I was excited about is that leaving the Kelso Sand Dunes and the train station behind us, I knew that once we got over this mountain range, we were going to be seeing a bunch of things that we haven't got to explore yet out on the EMHT compared to circling back and kind of seeing familiar things. I think the theme of the day for this video is going to be all about mines. The road we're on right now is actually the first paved road all through the Mojave, and it was actually put in the early 1900s. There's a reason why they put this road in. Even though the deserters reclaimed it and taken it back over, this road is taking us up to the most profitable mine in all of the Mojave. More importantly on that, the most profitable mine in the Mojave was not a gold or a silver mine. In fact, it was an iron ore mine. And where we're heading is the Vulcan mine. People could make an argument that we would have lost World War II if it were not for the Vulcan mine, as this mine pretty much produced all of the iron ore to help us build our Navy and battleships. Okay guys, first stop of the day. As you saw, we have climbed up out of the basin. We have left the sand dunes way behind us, and we are up at the top of Foshay Pass, and more importantly, the Vulcan mine. That old road that we took was the only paved road in this whole area in the 1900s. And of course, there is not a road there anymore. There's a few remnants of it, but you're pretty much off-roading the whole way up here. The Vulcan mine was pretty special. It was actually founded in 1902, 1904, something like that. This was one of the most important iron mines for the World War II effort because the iron that came out of here was actually made to help build our Navy. So between 1942 and 1948 was the heyday of this mine. And it finally ceased operations somewhere in the 50s, I believe. This was an important mine, and where we're heading after the Foshay Pass is we're actually going to be heading over to the ghost town of Providence and the Bonanza King mine, where we're actually going to run into somebody very special that I can't wait to introduce you guys to. If you come out here more into the spring or early fall when it's still hot out here, there are some awesome camp spots. Like right where I'm standing, this is an old concrete pad from the steel mill, and you can actually camp up here. There's a fire ring up here and everything, so people have camped up here. Nonetheless, a little bit of history. The pit itself is vast. I tried to get the drone up over it. We can't get very close to it because they have it all fenced off because it is dangerous. So it's something like 9 acres. It's 325 feet deep by 700 feet long. So they just gashed into this whole mountain range to get the ore. We're gonna start heading back down the mountains, and we're gonna get over to the other side, or the east side of the mountains, if you will, and start heading towards Bonanza King. About a mile down the road, we finally got over Foshay Pass proper. The camera never really shows just how steep these angles are, but I did put my lockers on to get up this hill. You could probably do it in 4-wheel drive, but it was a little loose and sketchy. But once we got up over the top, we left the sand dunes behind and everything that we've known about the EMHT so far, and we started heading out towards the Bonanza King mine. The views just opened up on this section of trail, and it was beautiful. A little bit about the Bonanza King mine as we head towards it. It is a massive silver mine. It was discovered in 1880, and in its heyday by 1885, they had over 300 residences. They had 2 hotels with stables. They had 3 saloons. They even had a post office, and they registered to become an actual county in the state of California so they could vote. Reports are varied as far as the mine itself, but what we do know is that it is vast and it is long. I read one report that said it had over 3 miles of tunnels through there. The last little section getting up to the mine is a little sketchy. 4-wheel drive is highly recommended, and you do have to have high clearance. But I must say that the payoff is incredible. One of the main things I love about overlanding is getting out to these old ghost towns and these old mines. I just can't help but think of all the people that were here before me, their lives. What did they do? Where did they come from? Did they come across on a train? Did they have big dreams and aspirations only to end up in a mine? I just love thinking about all of those things. My imagination runs wild. Okay guys, we have made it down that sketchy road over to the Bonanza King mine. This is a massive, massive mine. We're going to go inside, see how far we can walk. Yeah, the trail getting up here, definitely high clearance, and there's looks like another surprise in a little bit. But on the other side of the mountain, we do have a special guest, which I'm looking forward to getting to. But I wanted to show you guys the mine really fast. And apparently this mine goes forever and ever and ever. We're not going to go that far, obviously. And it is massive. You could drive a TJ down this. You could easily get a Jeep down here. The ceilings are probably 10 feet tall. Yeah, it is a massive, massive mine. No railroad tracks or anything, so they probably hauled, they had small vehicles that came up and down through here. Man, it just keeps going and going, digging down. So there's numbers here. 741. I'm not sure what that means. This one says 742, 743. So I wonder if that's how many feet the mine goes. Those really aren't in foot increments, though. So I'm not sure. If anybody knows, put it in the comments. I'd be curious to know. But it's still massive. The mine is still, I can't touch the top. I mean, it's still probably 8 or 9 feet tall and just as wide. You just imagine all the people back in the day digging this, working it. Looks like there's a cave-in up ahead. So that's probably as far as we're going to go. Looks like they tried to shore it up, but this is definitely a cave-in. But it just continues and continues and continues. Really cool. Very stagnant air. And there is still light at the end of the tunnel, so I've gone as far as I want to go. But really cool to check out, guys. Two ways to get over to the old town side of Providence. You can go up this little sketchy road right here, or you can drive all the way back around the mountain. Once again, camera's not going to show you angles, but I got a little scared because I had to actually slam on the gas as I started to burn rubber getting over this one little section, and I almost ran my wife over at the same time. Nonetheless, we did get up the hill, but keep that in mind if you do come out to this area. It is not recommended to go down this way because it is so off-cambered, even though the camera doesn't show it. But it was fun. Well, that was a hell of a hill. I burned my rubber a little bit. That was fun, though, getting up. We are now up over, heading towards the ghost town of Providence, and we're about to meet up with a good buddy of mine that I can't wait to introduce you to, Mr. John Marnell. So let's go. All right, guys, as promised, our special guest. This man is not going to tote his own horn, so I'll do it for him. This is Mr. John Marnell. He is one of the people that is solely responsible for the EMHT, keeping the EMHT updated, and he was one of the originals that went out and remapped everything that Dennis Casebeer did. Remember that Dennis Casebeer was the guy that originally did this in the 80s, and when the preserve came in, we had to remap a bunch of it, and John was one of those. John, thanks for coming and hanging out with us out here in the middle of nowhere. Can you tell us a little bit of history, like what we're doing right here in this building?
We're in the town of Providence. What was Providence? It was the town that supported work in the Bonanza King mine just over the hill. This, where we're standing, was the mine manager's building, and down below us on the slope is where the miners stayed, mostly in rock houses, and we'll see one of those that the National Park Service has restored. I know TJ mentioned responsible for remapping the East Mojave Heritage Trail, and really Billy Creech is the guy that really found it out. And I worked with Billy and Bill Engelhardt to put it together to help proof it and drive it. So it was a team effort.
Like I said, he isn't going to take any of the credit for himself. But no, I met John through the Goff Schoolhouse. If you watched episode 1, we checked out the Goff Schoolhouse, and that's actually how we met. And we just started communicating, and I was asking him questions about the trail. And from there, we just kind of became friends, and he was able to come out here and meet us in the middle of nowhere for the end of Section 3. This man has a vast knowledge of everything that is the EMHT. Of course, there are books that go along with this that Dennis did originally, that they have supplemental guides. That's how we're kind of getting around. Besides our Onyx app, we're using those guidebooks. We're learning about what all these places were, and then we're using the supplemental guides where the trail might have deviated. And so you put in the supplemental guide so that you can get around on the EMHT.
Well, that's correct. When the National Park Service took over the East Mojave in 1994, they established new wilderness areas that the original East Mojave Heritage Trail went through. There had to be reroutes to avoid those wilderness areas that you can't drive in.
And the original trail was how many miles?
The original trail was 660. The new one is just about 700, a little over, due to various reroutes causing extra mileage to come in. The through roads are blocked by wilderness in about a dozen or 13 instances.
Right. Here at Providence proper, like you said, this was the boss man's shack. What year was this done?
This was done in the late 1880s.
1880,
Yeah.
wow.
And it's been worked off and on through the 1900s. In the 1930s, I believe, or late 1930s, it was last work. But it's a pretty amazing place. The views looking out from here,
yeah,
they're astonishing. It's just a great view.
We're on top of the mountain, and we can see all the way towards Lake Havasu. I mean, 1, 2, 3 ridges over, way out there is probably that direction. Mm-hmm. And Needles, I guess, is going to kind of be behind the camera over that way. Anyways, you can see forever up here, guys. It is beautiful, and that's one of the joys about doing the EMHT is you are out here alone. We have not ran into a single person today except for John, and we knew John was going to come meet us. So if you want to get away and be excluded or just be out in nature, check out the EMHT. All right, so from here, I guess we're going to go down and check out some of the rock structures that were around.
That's right.
All right.
And then we'll head off towards Fenner.
Yeah, Fenner.
Towards the end of the trail.
Towards the end of section 3, Fenner. That's your one fuel stop. Let's saddle back up. Let's run down, check out some of these other rock structures, and then get back up on the trail. All right, guys, so like we said, we wanted to stop really quick at the rock house. Now, I just asked John, we're not sure exactly whose this was, but I kind of surmised that this is probably a bunkhouse of some sort because it's so big. It's way bigger than Boss Man's up top. Apparently, the Parks came in, they had blueprints or something to try and... So this, what you're seeing, guys, I guess I should clarify. This has been rebuilt. This is as much as they could get rebuilt of this structure. But the way that they knew how to rebuild it was...
The National Park Service came in and surveyed this entire town site of Providence, and they had the footprints of the buildings. There wasn't much standing, but they knew where each building was. They spent years researching and documenting what was here, and they have the funds now to restore this one. I don't know whether they're finished with it or not.
I hope they're not finished.
But their intent is to do more sites here if they can get the additional funding to do it.
Apparently they don't get a whole lot of funding, John, if this is all they got done.
Well, the report, I believe the report is online through the National Park Service, Mojave Preserve, and you can see the 400-page report detailing what they did here.
Wow. Yeah, it really is incredible to think, 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, there was like 300-400 people out here walking up over the mountain every day to go into that mine that we showed you guys, and then this is where they hung out. You could be in a worse spot though. The views are absolutely incredible though. And do we know where these blocks came from?
I believe these are picked up off the ground. These are the original This is the original building materials.
Wow.
Not certain it all came from this particular structure, but they had quite a crew up here doing this work.
Yeah, because they would have had to hand break all of these to square them up.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting stuff, guys. And if you just want to come out to the mines like we've done, you can do that. You don't have to do the EMHT. Even though I recommend doing the EMHT, you can get to certain spots like these, the highlighted spots, without doing the grueling 700 miles. But what fun is that, right? All right, so from here, I guess we're going to shoot down and get back on the trail. And speaking of grueling, get back on the trail and see how far we can get today. But nonetheless, thank you for showing this to us. This is really cool.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right.
Leaving the mountains behind and getting away from all the mines, the end of Section 3 really just takes you out into the flatness of the desert towards the one gas station in Fenner. I did want to mention two things to do out here that we don't get to on video, really just due to time constraints and not really being a part of the EMHT. But the first one would be Mitchell Caverns. You can go up in the mountains and you can get a guided tour through a massive cave, which is Mitchell Caverns. They're open year-round except for the months of July and August. You can just Google them and check it out, but it is worth your time. But it's going to be a 4 or 5 hour day if you do that, so you'd have to camp accordingly. Speaking of camping, one of the more popular camping spots in all of the Mojave is a place called Hole in the Wall. This campground, you can put an RV up there, tents, everything pretty much. And while it's close to paved roads, it's easy to get in and out, but it is a beautiful spot. The campground is actually at a higher elevation, so you get vast views of the Mojave, and it's a great spot if you just want to do a base camp and do a bunch of hiking trails around that area. As for us though, we grinded it out across the desert. As the sun started to go down, we got to the town of Finner, topped off our tank, and then John took me over to another historic spot that I had no clue even existed. The historical Camp Clipper. While it doesn't look like much, out here in the middle of the desert yet again, all of the soldiers for World War II were trained in desert invasion right here. It seems like every time I look out in the desert and think that there could be nothing of any value out in the Mojave, yet again the Mojave soil shows just how deep its history runs. Well, there you have it, guys. The end of section 3 of EMHT. Man, what a beautiful trail. Had a great time today. Of course, we started out there in the sand dunes, and we went up to the Vulcan mine, that massive pit that you guys saw from the drone footage. Crossed over Foshay Pass, headed down the mountains, and to the other side, the east side of the mountains, to Mount Egger? Mount Egger. And of course, from there we had the Bonanza, and we got to run into John, learn a little bit of history about that. Where we are now, we just finished up some dinner. You wouldn't notice from where we are, even in the sunlight, but in the 1940s, right here was where they trained all of the soldiers, like 1.2 million soldiers. The only thing that's left now is like an old water tank, and there's still the runway. All the structures are gone though, but it's just crazy to think that, you know, in the 1940s, during the height of World War II, the Mojave was such an important role, not only to train men, but the resources that were out here. It was just a really fun day learning a bunch of kind of historical stuff, and of course, doing the trail itself. This trail didn't seem near as challenging, the back side of 3 compared to the front side of 3, like that Amboy spot where we went up towards Orange Blossom Mine. The scenery though was beautiful. Really, there's only a few things you need to keep in mind if you want to attempt the EMHT. Definitely high clearance is needed in some spots. I don't think lockers are necessarily needed, but I did have to engage them today doing Foshay just for a little bit of added confidence. And of course, that crazy mine road that I did to get up to Providence where I met John, you can bypass that and go the long way around, but we just went straight up it. I did have to have lockers engaged there. But all in all, you're just going to need some good 4-wheel drive. A lot of the roads you could do in 2-wheel drive, but you need to have 4-wheel drive. Other than that, make sure you got tons of fuel, you got tons of food, lots of water, and you're really set. Onyx has a great map guide that will get you from point A to point B. And if you actually buy the EMHT books that were made by Case Beer, with the stuff that John and Billy and the other guys have come up with, the complimentary packets that go along with that, you could come out here for weeks and explore different things. Today we did over 7.5 hours of trail time. I think we ended up somewhere around 80 miles today. The whole section itself is over 156 miles. So plan that accordingly. It took us 4 days, really took us 3.5 days to do it. But we were stopping and filming a lot of things. If you just want to kind of bolt through it, I mean, you can, but really the joy of the EMHT is getting out and exploring so many of the cool things that it has to offer. As far as reviews though, I don't really want to do a big long rundown of reviews. Just know that it's going to be moments of 1s and you're going to have some 4s and 5 obstacles. You know, the trail just varies. It's a very bipolar trail, as you've heard me say in other videos, and probably in this one too. That's the best way I can describe this trail, is it is a bipolar trail. Moments of beauty, and then hours where you want to pull your hair out, but you're grinding for something. It's an endurance trail, and that's what makes it so fun. We've now got 1, 2, and 3 in the books. We only have 1 section left. We're going to get some good rest here, and we're going to continue on the journey, and I believe I've talked John into coming along with us. So he's going to help us on section 4, and we're probably going to get to learn some more cool things. He has such a vast knowledge, obviously, of the EMHT and the preserve. He's been out here since the 80s, and he's very integral in keeping this thing going with some of his other partners. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I truly do appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, please hit me up down below. I'll do my best to answer it for you. And until next time, guys, we sincerely hope to see you out here on the trails. Bye.